Hello everyone, welcome back to Angela's Craft Room. I thought I'd do another mail card for you today. I've come up with this one. Now I've created my own background on the first layer of the card, and to do that I've used the stamp set Timeless Textures. Now we're going to be using this stamp here, this one, the little dots, and also yes, this one here. Okay, so that's what we're going to be using in there. And then also I've used the Guide Greetings stamp set. So in that one I've obviously used the car, and I've used To a Classic. Now the way I've stamped two up here and a classic down there, to do that, and this is something you might not want to do with your stamp, but I've actually cut the two so I could do it separately. So as I said, it's something that you might not like to do, but it does give you a lot more options with your sentiments if you do that. Okay, so, and also inside the card I've done it a little bit differently. We'll stamp the whole thing and then we'll cut it, and then I just think it adds a bit different element to the card, having the side, I call it a banner, but it's not really a banner, it's just a side stamp down there, and then you've still got all this area to write in. And if you wanted to, you could put happy birthday up here as well. So it's I'm quite happy with that card. So we'll get started. So to start with, we need, I've used Early Espresso, and it's 11 inches by 4 1/4, and I've scored it at 5 1/2. So then I'm just going to fold that, grab my bone folder, and just give that a good burnish. Okay, so just set that aside. Now I think what we'll do first is we'll do the inside piece. So the inside piece I've used crumb cake, and that measures 4 inches by 5 3/8 of an inch, and that's the inside piece. And you'll also need a second piece exactly the same size, 4 inches by 5 3/8 of an inch, and that will be our top layer as well. So we'll do the inside first. So I'm just going to, I think I'm just going to use Early Espresso this time. And I just need to grab the spanners out of there. Okay, so I'm just going to use this little block. Hopefully they'll fit on there. Yep. So I'm just going to stamp down that side. I might do the one at the bottom, and then I know where I want to, my glue's just fallen over, it's alright, and stamp that one there. And I'll just clean that off straight away with my stamping scrub that's just off camera. So just clean that one off straight away. Okay, so then we need the car, which is that one, and because it's a bigger image I'm just going to take my ink pad to my stamp, and I'm going to stamp that about there, like that. Sorry if that's moved. And I was just contemplating whether to put happy birthday at the top. But I don't think I will. So then I need to bring in my trimmer. I'll just close up that ink pad. Then I'm just going to unlock it, and I just want to trim that. So I'm lining that up at 1.5 inches. And that gives me my 2 pieces for inside the card. Now, just a little bit, had a few fibres there, so I'm just using, I do this quite often, I use the, what is this, adhesive eraser, if you get a bit of adhesive, but I find if you've got a few loose fibres on the edges, it's really handy to remove them as well. So it does come in handy for that as well. Now, I won't do it on this tutorial, but you can sponge round the edges as well, like I'd sponge round with soft suede, but otherwise we'll be here all day. So to start with, I would just have a look where you want you cut it to be inside, so to make sure it fits, and we want a little gap between both of them. So just using my multi-purpose glue in this instance, because I may need to move it. So using the multi-purpose glue, it just gives you that little bit of time to move your piece of cardstock if it's not exactly where you want it. So I'm just putting the top piece I should say, down first. And then I want to put this piece right there. So just grab a little bit more. You don't need very much of this glue. So try and get it as level as you can at the top. And then I just, as those that watch me all the time, I just like to close it and just press down. And I just think that it's just a bit different inside the card, and it's not just a blank piece with writing on it. So it just gives you that bit more emphasis on inside your card. Now we need our other piece of crumb cake. So this is going to be our top layer that we're going to do the background stamping, and that is 4 inches and 4 inches by 5 3/8 of an inch, as I mentioned before. Just pop my glue back so it's ready for me. So to start with, I'm going to use Cajun Craze, and I'm just going to use this dotted image. So this is, you might not look like the way this looks, but it's quite effective as a background stamp. So So we just need to go round our stamp on all edges. And this just adds a bit of interest to your card. It just gives it another layer when you're making your own background stamp. Your own background, I should say, on your top layer of your card. You know, just a bit different than having to use just a different colour cardstock or designer series paper. And if you've got the stamp sets to do it, you know, like you're not having to buy designer series paper all the time, you can use this. So we'll just clean that off. So let's get rid of that one. Okay, so then we're going to use that one. So then I'm going to use this one. Okay, so I'll just get it on my block. And I'm just going to grab Always Artichoke stamp pad and stamp that up. I just like to test it on my grid paper. Yep. So what I'm going to do with that one, I'm going to come in on all four corners on that. And I might even just, without re-inking, stamp off for this side and just come in there like that. So that's that one. And then we're going to use the swirly one. So we'll just use the same block. And I'm just going to use crumb cake, I think, on that one. So it doesn't really matter where you put it because your card's going to cover it as well. So we're just going to put that there, one there. So I'm just sort of putting it where I want to. There's no big rules of where it has to go. So I just want it in between those swirly, that swirly little stamp that I did earlier. So that will do there. Then we just need our little dots, which those spanners can come off because we won't be using them again. So just the little dots, and I think I'll actually use soft suede for those, just to add a bit more interest. So just dot. So just remember with these, you're not going to see a lot of these because we're going to be covering it with the car. But that's good because you just never know what part is you're going to see once we've got the car down there. So I always like, personally, I like to cover most areas. So you can see how easy that is by just using a few different stamping pad colours. And then that's your background. So we're going to put that straight on our card. So we'll just using a bit of snail for this one. But that timeless textures, I just use it so much because it's a really brilliant background stamp. So we just want to pop that on as equally as we can. It's gone on a bit crooked. Oh, that was lucky that I was able to pull that off. That's what I get for not using my multi-purpose liquid glue. Okay, so then we just want to make sure that that is glued down, seeing I've pulled it up and put it back down again. So that's your background for your first layer. So you can see how easy that was. So now what we need is for our centerpiece where the card's going to be stamped on, just grabbing it, I'm going to use a piece of Early Espresso, which is 3.5 inches by 2 3/4 inches, and a piece of crumb cake, which is 3.25 inches by 2 inches. So grabbing the card and popping that back on, I'm just going to stamp using Always Artichoke onto the crumb cake piece. If I can just put, here we go. So you don't have to use as many colours as I'm using, that's entirely up to you. So you really want this inked up well because this is your focus point of your card. So you really want the card inked up really well because it's such a detailed stamp as well. So then you just really need to center it, and you need to add a really good pressure over the whole stamp because there's so much detail to this stamp, and that's worked out wonderfully. So we'll just close that ink pad, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to add this to our Early Espresso, but what I'm going to do first is just grab my soft suede, and I just want to put a little bit of sponging around the edge of that. So I will just grab a dauber, which are these that you can get from Stampin' Up, come in a pack of 5, very reasonable. When you've used them, you just wash them out under the tap and just let them dry, and they'll be dry overnight, and you can just reuse them and reuse them. They're wonderful. So just tapping it on there. So, oh yes, I was going to use a different ink pad, but it doesn't matter. This actually might look a bit better. So it will just add a little bit more definition by doing this around the edge of the cardstock. And then when you have done all 4 sides and you don't have very much ink left on your dauber, I just like to go to the corners and then just come in on the cardstock a little bit. It just gives it a bit more vintage look, and you can see the longer I do it, I'm putting the dauber a bit more further onto the card because it's got less and less ink. I'm going to have to add some, but I'll stamp it off. And just go around it like that. And you can see I'm just coming a bit more further on to the cardstock. So I'm trying to make sure I stay in camera view. And then just come further up. I'm doing it a bit more on this one than I did on the original card, but just coming further up to the card, up to the car, sorry, and it's just going to add a really vintagey look to it, and it just adds a lot more interest than just stamping your car on there. So just use your other hand to stabilize where I'm starting to really put a lot of pressure on there now because there's not very much ink and I don't want to re-ink it. But that's really brought it up like it's looking really vintagey. So we'll just close that ink pad and I'm just going to grab some dimensionals. Let's put one in each corner at least. So you could do that, but I do going to put one here and one here as well. Okay, so then I like to grab my tweezers and I just push in the middle, and you can see as I'm pushing into the middle that it is bringing up that little piece that has to come off, and I just find it a lot quicker and a lot easier to bring them off like that. Okay, so now I'm just going to add it towards, you can see I've got ink on my fingers. I'm just going to add that to towards the top of the early espresso because I want to add ribbon at the bottom. Okay, so just press down where you've put your dots. Now the ribbon I'm going to use is mint macaron, but it comes from a trio pack of ribbons, which is the ribbon trio pack 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeters wide, and it has 15 meters, well it has 15 yards, which is just a fraction under 15 meters of ribbon in that pack. So you get the rich raspberry, you get the mint macaron and the delightful Dijon in that pack, and that's order number 142021. It's a really good buy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a little bit of tear and tape to put on the back, because that's going to hold my ribbon, because I don't put adhesive under my ribbons. I find it either shows a bulge or something like that. So I'm just going to pop that, so that's going to hold it there while I tie the ribbon. And I'm only going to be tying like a knot. Might just chop off that bit there, make it a bit easier for me. I'm not the best one to be tying knots. I always just let the ribbon go where it wants to go. I don't fight against it, and I'm not tying a bow, I'm tying a knot. This is a mail card that I'm creating, but it's just adding a bit of interest. So, just see where it wants to, so it's sitting there quite nicely. So then I'm just going to grab a glue dot and put under that where the knot is. So just grab a glue dot just under this knot here. I'm just going to put a glue dot. So just pull it a bit tighter, and I might just put a glue dot, a second one just under there, just to hold it. I don't like putting adhesive under my ribbons like along there, because I find that it does show it can bulge, make the ribbon bulge. Trying to find the right word. So then I'm just grabbing my ribbon scissors, which are wonderful. They are the paper snips from Stampin' Up. And you might think I'm wasting a lot of ribbon by doing it this way, but it will go into my scraps, and I can always use them on something else. So I might even cut a little bit more off later, but we'll see how we go. And then you just have to decide, get rid of the glue dots, just have to decide whether you want to have it straight or whether you want to have it on the side, which I prefer to have it sort of on the side. I think it just adds a bit more interest. So I'm going to just use my snail, and it's not the best putting snail over ribbon. I usually only do it with tear and tape. I'll just try and get a little bit on that edge there just to hold it down. Okay, so then we're just going to bring our card in, just position it where you want it. I think it looks pretty good there. Let's give it a little bit of rub, magic rub, so it adheres to my card. So we've got that like that so far. Now whether I want to just trim that off a little bit more. Just a little bit. Oh, now it's gone under the ribbon. Let's grab that scrap out. So And you could even just grab a glue dot with your tweezers. I did see this, yeah, just under this flap here, just right up near the knot, just so it just holds it down a little bit. I mean, these glue dots just last forever, the roll of them. I'll just put a little glue dot under there. Yeah, that just makes the ribbon sit down a little bit better. Okay, so we've done that. So now we need to add our sentiment, which I have punched out in crumb cake using the window punch from Stampin' Up. So if you haven't seen our punches before, you just turn them over, just press that down and it releases it. Okay, and then you just punch out, which I did off camera, so that for the video to go too long. So I've got a classic, and I'm just going to grab my crumb cake and my dauber, and I just want to add a bit of interest on these. So I'm just going to go around the outside, and it just continues on that vintage look to how we did it for the car. Like that. Can bring it on there a little bit. Okay, that's that one. And we'll just do the same to this one. I do like the second one a bit more, where we've added a bit more of ink with the dauber around the car. I think that it's added more of a vintage look, and it is a vintage car. So I have a husband that's very into the vintage cars, loves his cars. So just put a bit more on there. Like that, so just a bit more on that one, just so. Okay, so that's just about finished. So we just need to add those. Now to add them, what I did is I added dimensionals, but because this is so narrow, you will find that you will have to cut the dimensionals in half. And I just use a pair of old scissors because I don't like using my good Stampin' Up ones when I'm going to be mucking around with dimensionals and glue. I have wrecked paper snips before by using my good paper snips. Let's put that one in the middle. And like when you use your dimensionals, another tip is when you've used all these inside, you're going to have these outside edge border left. Don't throw that out because it's all dimensional. So, you know, you can use it, especially when you're having to cut some off like this. you know. So it will last an awful lot. Like I think you get like about 300 dimensionals in a packet, so it does last for quite a long time. So I just need to get, I've done that one. I would grab my, there they are, let's grab my tweezers. To get that film off. Okay, so I'm going to pop 2, bring in my card, and you can do it straight. I just am into doing things a bit differently. I most probably shouldn't have put so much dimensional, but that's alright. That one's alright there. 2, and then I'm just going to pop a classic on an angle down there like that, and that's our card finished. If you wanted to, you could add some enamel dots going down here. I was going to, but I don't think I will. So this is my original card, this one. And you'll see with this one we sponged a bit more into the card, and I think it adds to the vintage look of the card. So I hope you'll give that a try, making your own background. And just thank you so much, all my subscribers. I'm just love all your comments. Please comment below, give me the thumbs up if it's a card that you have enjoyed watching make. And until next time, happy crafting.